Hey there, everyone. It is Michelle Dittmer here. I am the president and co-founder of the Canadian Gap Year Association, and I'm so excited today to do this recording for you and talk all about gap year travel. We're going to talk about the basics today, making sure that you guys are all set for planning any sort of travel that you have coming up. I'm going to share all sorts of different tips and tricks and suggestions, and hopefully this will get you comfortable with all of the things that happen with traveling, whether you're traveling on your own, in a group, for a gap year, for a grad trip, whatever you got going on, we are going to be covering it today. So don't you worry, sit with me. If you did miss the original session because we canceled it, my apologies. I came down with pneumonia. You might notice that I might cough during this presentation or become winded because I'm still dealing with the tail end of that. So thank you for your patience as we get through all of this. So this is what we're going to cover today. We're going to talk about why defining your travel why is so important. We are going to figure out what type of travel you are best suited for. We're going to go over the basics, the logistics, and we're going to talk a little bit about working abroad. So it's a lot to cram into the next half hour, but hopefully we can get through it all. So stick with me. Like I said, the first thing we're going to talk about is your gap year why. And this is central to everything that I talk about. Anytime that I'm talking about anything, we always start with why. If you haven't seen Simon Sinek's video on Start With Why, I highly recommend it. It is one of the most watched YouTube videos and highly, highly worth it. Very interesting. But why do we always have to start with the why? It's really important because we need to know where we are starting from. Where are we starting from? We're starting from why do you want to travel? And that it's as simple as that, answering that question. And that question can be different for every single person. There is no right or wrong answer, but it will give us a frame of reference to do all of the other work around planning some sort of travel for you. So in answering this question, it might be because I want to become more independent, because I'm curious about the culture, because I want to challenge myself, because I've never traveled anywhere before, because I heard it's lots of fun, because I want to try new food. Knowing all of those gap year whys and setting goals for yourself is going to be so central to figuring out how you are going to structure your time, what type of trip you're going to take. And it is just a great way to start any sort of thought process, is figuring out, why am I actually doing this? What is my motivation? What is the purpose of this particular thing that I'm jumping into? And in this case, that happens to be travel. Now, not all travel is the same. There are many, many, many different categories of travel, many ways to do it. There is no hierarchy. One is not better than the other. They are simply different. So they're kind of just all over the map, different pockets, different experiences, different outcomes. And like I said, not one is better than the other. They are just all different, and different is totally okay. But what we want to do is we want to match you with the type of travel that actually suits you, something that you are actually interested in, and something that you might actually enjoy. So let's ask some questions that will help you to figure this out. So take out a notebook and write down the answers to these questions, because it will help you clarify if or what style of travel actually makes sense for you. So first one, what type of experience do you want to have? What's that going to look like? Just a very, very high level. If you could imagine this, what would it look like? What would be a successful trip? What would be a happy trip? What are you envisioning this trip to be? So what experience do you want? Oh, no, I lied. Back up. Boop, 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 boop. What experience do you have? We're starting with that. Sorry, my mistake. I need to relearn my English. Apparently, I've been helping my daughter with her French homework. Everything's backwards in French. So what experience do you have? This is very, very good evaluation of where are you starting? What skills do you have? And that starts with experience. So it's nothing about who you are. There is no judgment here. It's just being very honest about what experience you have. So think about, how many places have you traveled? Some people have never traveled outside of their hometown. Some people haven't traveled outside of the country. Some people haven't traveled outside of North America. Some people haven't traveled, the only place they've traveled is to all-inclusive resorts. So I want you to just think about all of those places that you've traveled, all the experience you have, all of the styles of travel that you've done, because there is a very, very big difference between going every year to an all-inclusive resort versus going on a family backpacking trip. The skills that you develop in those two are very, very different. And if you have only existed in all-inclusive resorts, your experience backpacking will be much more challenging because there is a lot more decisions to be made, a lot bigger risks to take. So just think about the reality of what is your experience that you have. The next question I want you to ask yourself is, how long can I handle being away from home? Be realistic here. We want to make sure that we are getting out of our comfort zone, but we're not going so far out of our comfort zone that we end up in our overwhelm zone, because that's no good. You're going to panic. You're going to end up coming back home. You're going to have a terrible time, and that's not what we want. So how long can you realistically handle being away from home? Is it 1 week, 3 weeks, a month, 3 months? A year? Again, no judgment. Just what is that reality for you? And then I want you to think about, who do you want to travel with? Do you want to go solo by yourself, completely just you and your backpack heading out there? Do you want to go with a friend or a buddy or a family member? Or do you want to travel as part of a larger group? These are very, very different styles of travel, and each gives a very different experience. Again, there's no hierarchy. It's just they are different experiences. Keeping going with those questions, what budget do you have? Because there are budget versions and there are Cadillac versions. And you know what? That's just the reality of life. So what are you working with? Are you looking for something that is a very economical trip? Or are you looking to blow the bank, no holding back, just experience everything, pay for everything, no problem? So be realistic about that budget, because that will also dictate what your gap year is going to look like. And part 2 of this series is a whole hour on budgeting for your gap year, or your trip, your travel. So make sure that you are being very accurate with this, not accurate, but realistic. What type of accommodations are you comfortable with? So some people are only comfortable in a private room. Some people are happy to spend time with strangers in a dorm style hostel. Some people are really comfortable going to a homestay, so staying in a local's home. Really, it is up to your comfort level. So just think about what type of accommodation would you be comfortable with? And at what pace do you want to travel? Are you somebody that wants to go, 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 go? I want to see 14 countries in 14 days. Or are you somebody who wants a more immersive experience? I want to spend 3 months in this one city and really get to know the culture. So what are you looking for? Are you looking for 14-hour days? Are you looking for a leisurely morning breakfast and then maybe go out to one museum and then come back? So what is the pace and style of travel that you want? This is what I thought the first question was, but it's not. What types of activities do you want to do? Do you want to be out there hiking? Do you want to be active all the time? Do you want it more cultural, language and arts and food? Do you want it to be about specifically about language? Do you want it to be adventure-based, adrenaline-seeking? So what types of activities are you hoping? Or maybe you're hoping for a mix of all of these. We never know. Everybody is different. Now, what I want you to do is to think about all the answers to your questions. So if there is somebody that you are thinking of traveling with, Do all of your expectations and experience line up with that person that you want to travel with? Because traveling, you're going to get to know somebody so well. And if you are not set up for success, it can go terribly wrong. So make sure everybody is on the same page and you guys are hoping to get the same thing out of your travel experience. So double check with all of that. If you want more resources, we have an amazing travel style quiz on our website. You can just go to resources and you'll see it in the drop down. Take the travel style quiz. It is an incredible opportunity for you to get some more insight into what your travel style might be, as well as get some curated resources based on that travel style. So we will send that link out later, but it's a great, great resource for you. Now, when you are planning a trip, there are many, many ways to do this. Some people choose to do that by themselves. So you're going to plan your whole trip by yourself. This is booking your flights, your accommodation, planning your activities, doing the whole shebang yourself. If you're up for that, amazing. We're going to give you some of the basics you need to think about. That's one way of doing it. A second way of planning your trip is to work with a travel agent. And this affords a couple of things. Often they don't charge money to plan your trip. They make their money through the flights and referrals that they get from different places. Sometimes they do have a fee. You'll have to check what the structure is. But travel agents can be very helpful because they have a wealth of knowledge around flights, accommodations, different places to travel, things to see, because this is their job. This is what they do all the time, is plan these trips. So it can be really helpful from the planning perspective, but also if something goes sideways, they are there as a resource. So your flight gets canceled or your hotel burns down, you give them a call and they'll be able to help navigate those changes that need to be made. They're basically a resource in your back pocket that you're going to take with you on your trip. So they could be really, really helpful. Another way to plan a trip is to work with a group travel company. So these are organizations that plan trips, and that's all they do. But they are not planning for one specific family or one specific person. What they are doing is they are planning a trip and say, hey, anybody who's interested in doing X, Y, and Z in country ABC, come join us. And so you would join up with other people who are interested in doing that same trip. Now, group travel companies are everything from more like tourism based to volunteering abroad to even long-term stays can be done as part of group travel companies. These are great opportunities for people who are a little bit newer to traveling. They get the opportunity to travel, but have somebody else take care of most of the logistics, which is super, super, super helpful. Also, you get to meet tons of new people, get to know people from all over the world because they're going to be coming from all over the world, and have a really, really good time. I can tell you a quick story here. I did a group travel trip to Ireland, and we hopped on a bus with a bunch, 30 other people from around the world, traveled all around Ireland together, just had a blast. But one of the women on the trip happened to be from Japan. And funny enough, 2 years later, I was traveling to Japan. So I messaged her on Facebook and said, hey, going to be in town. Want to hang out? And I met up with her in Japan. I got to stay with her family. They dressed me up in a yukata, which is like an informal kimono. We went out to a lantern festival together. They bought all sorts of traditional Japanese street food and just had the best time. But it was because of that connection on this group trip in Ireland that I end up being able to do that. It was just so amazing. So I am a big, huge fan of group travel. If you do want to do some independent travel, but you're a little bit nervous, I often recommend that you start with a group travel trip. So perhaps, let's go with my example of Ireland. Maybe you're going to do an Ireland tour, and that's going to be a 1-week tour, but you're actually not going to fly home right at the end of that. Maybe you're going to stick around after your Ireland tour that's planned, and maybe you're going to fly from Ireland to London, and you're going to tour London on your own and then fly back home from there. So often you can get your sea legs, you can get oriented to the life of travel, and then take on a little bit more responsibility in sticking around at the end to do that. So lots of different ways to get this travel planned. We do have a bunch of organizations at cangap.ca/programs. And on this website, we have tons of different group travel companies. So if that's something you're interested, that's a good place to start. Now, when we're looking at different organizations to work with, there are certain things that we want to be very, very sure of. And here's a good kind of starting point when we are looking at comparing group A to group B or travel experience A to B. We always want to look at safety. Safety is number one. Safety is number one for your parents. Safety should be number one for yourself. We want to make sure that you are in a safe spot, that you are doing things safely, that if you are traveling with a group, they have safety top of mind, because we want to make sure that you get home in one piece. We want to make sure you get home safely. So safety is the number one thing. And don't be afraid to ask questions about safety or do your research on what safety means in different countries or for different organizations that might be planning your trip. Take a look at the activities, which is really important. What is this trip? What is this tour going to be doing if it's a pre-planned trip? What are the types of things we're going to be doing? What kind of equipment do I need? Are we going to be hiking? Are we going to be swimming? Are we going to be whitewater rafting? Are we going to be going to museums? Are we going to be walking 10 kilometers a day? So be aware of what the activities are. Looking at the budgets. When we are looking at budgets, often we jump onto a website and we see, oh my goodness, that trip is $3,000. That is way too much money. I do not want to spend that much money. There's another trip over here. It's the same number of days and it's only $2,000. So I'm going to travel with that company. It's not all about the number that you see. Make sure that when you are comparing prices, you're looking at what's included and what's excluded. So often flights are not included. So don't get excited that you can go spend 3 weeks in Ireland for $1,000, including flights, because it's not going to happen. So look at what's included, what's excluded. So things like flights, insurance, how many meals, how many activities are paid. Sometimes you have to pay for the activities on the spot. So make sure you are going through that list with a fine-tuned comb so you know what your money is going towards and if it makes sense. You should also be asking about the age of the participants that are on your trip. I would assume if you are a young traveler, you want to be traveling with people that are around your same age. I don't think jumping on a bus with a bunch of retirees is quite your jam, but maybe it is. But make sure you ask what is the type of person that goes on this trip? How old are they? Where do they come from? So you get an idea of what you're stepping into. Think about group size. Some tours have 5 people. Some tours have 30 people. So what is the size of the group? Think about ethical and sustainable if that is important to you. Do they do carbon offsetting? Are they aware of their impact on the local communities that they travel to? Do they work in partnership with the locals? Are their employees paid fair wages? So just thinking about those elements as well. It can be really tricky when we're traveling to other countries who have different levels of income and different standards of living and different cost of living to make sure that we are doing things appropriately and we're not taking advantage of anyone that's out there. Also, we cannot deny that reputation has a good spot in all of this. Make sure you do all of your reading up. Look for people who have been part of that travel program before. And I'm not saying look at their website because they curate that. They pick and choose who gets to write those. They pick which ones are included. My biggest tip is to actually jump onto Reddit. Check out Reddit and see what people there have to say, because that's where you're going to get the cold, hard truth. Now, you are going to get a sample of that. You're going to get the people who really loved it and the people who really hated it. So the truth is somewhere in the middle. So take it with a grain of salt, but it is something that you can think about. Now, some things that you should probably keep in mind, some considerations. Number one, always check travel.gc.ca. This is our national, our federal resource for all things travel. They will talk about travel advisories. They will talk about where it's safe to travel and where there are, where they're deterring people from traveling to. That could be based on weather patterns. That could be civil unrest. It could be a number of things, but they will outline all of the countries and give you a level of their confidence in traveling there. On that website, you can also register as a Canadian abroad. So you're traveling abroad for a while, you can register. So knock on wood, in the event that there is something that happens in that country, they will know that you are there, and the embassy or consulate or high commission will be there to find you and make sure that you get taken home safely. So that is a great resource for you to check out for sure. For our 2S LGBTQ plus folks, I highly recommend the IGLTA website. This is your Gay and Lesbian Travel Association. Tons of resources on where is safe, where is not safe, if you're part of this community, giving you tips and tricks on how to navigate travel as a member of the community. We've also got something similar for Black travelers. It's actually a Black-owned organization, and they have peer reviews on what it's like traveling to different countries as a Black person. So you can definitely check that out, see what they have to say, and they will give you, again, tips and tricks on where is safe, where is not safe, what is it like, anything that you need to take into account. If you are a young woman, traveling solo or whatever, Journey Woman is a great resource. It actually caters to like 50 plus travelers, but women, mostly because 50 plus people have money and are traveling. But a lot of the resources on this website are really helpful. They've even got an article for young solo female travelers. So if that's you, check out that resource. Super helpful. Now, I want to touch quickly on working abroad, because this is another way that you could possibly travel. This is a way for you to go to another country, have an immersive experience, but also earn money while you are there. So you're probably not going to be coming away from this a millionaire, but you are going to be able to pay off your plane tickets, pay off your accommodation, maybe make a little spending money for side adventures or souvenirs or things that you want to buy while you're there. But it's a really great way to have an immersive cultural experience. And I'm going to talk a little bit about a part of our federal government called International Experiences Canada. It's canada.ca/IEC. And these are the folks that are responsible for the working holiday visas or the youth mobility visas. So these are visas specifically for people between the ages of 18 and 35. So youth, that's what they define youth as. And there are at least 35 different countries around the world, countries and territories that you can get a visa in. Now, these youth mobility visas are meant to be cheap, easy, and fast. Things we like as young people. Cheap, easy, and fast. Often, if you need to go work in another country and you want to get a visa, it can be very costly and complicated and slow, and you need to have a job before you go. And if you get fired, you get kicked out of the country. For the youth mobility visa, that's not the case. You don't need a job before you go. You can land in country and get a job once you get there. You can bump around from job to job. You can do a job for a bit, quit and go travel, and then get another job. So it is very flexible, and it's a great way to really get that intense experience in another country, learn a new language, learn about a new culture, live amongst the locals for a while. So whether you want to work as a barista, a lot of people like to work in pubs in England, maybe you want to do the ski slopes in Japan, whatever it might be, there are lots of ways for you to earn money while you are traveling. So check out International Experience Canada if that is something that is of interest to you. Okay, I'm going to take a sip of water here because my throat is dry, and then we're going to talk about travel logistics. All right, travel logistics. Here we go. So, things that we want to look at when we are talking about flights. Prices for flights are like prices for gas. It goes up, it goes down, it goes up, it goes down, it goes way up, it goes way down. And there doesn't seem to be any rhyme or reason for it. And it can be really frustrating. But definitely check out Google Flights. So if you are interested in getting the best deal, Google Flights is the place to be. There's actually a spot to set up alerts about when prices drop or when prices rise. So you can be the first one to know and book when the prices are low. It will tell you whether that price is average for this time of year travel, low or high. So you can get a good sense of what the price is and if it's reasonable. The other thing, if you're going to be traveling, you got to think about layovers. So often the cheaper flights tend to have layovers. So you will have stops along the way. There is an opportunity to extend that stop and spend extra time. So for perhaps folks traveling to England, maybe there is a stop in Iceland along the way. So instead of flying to Iceland, landing at 3 and then taking off again at 5 to go to England, maybe you're going to land at 3, spend a day, and then head off at 5 the following day. So extending those layovers might be a possible way to see more places and get more bang for your buck because you're paying for that trip to England, but you got a little stop in the middle there. Think about accommodations. There are lots of different ways to stay in different countries. So the one that most people are probably familiar with is a hotel. So this is where you have your private room. Usually there's a bathroom in the room. You have your beds. Everything is private. It is just you in that room. They tend to have more amenities than other hostels, but it's something that most people are pretty familiar with. We also have the world of hostels. This is probably the best way you're ever going to meet people, to be honest. I have stayed in many a hostel around the world. These are run by travelers for travelers. They have different styles of rooms. So you still can get a private room. You can still get a private room with a washroom, but those are fewer and far between. More often it is dorm style. So you will get a bed and a locker, and that is kind of your spot. These places usually have a pretty lively common room or bar within it, kitchens where you can go and hang out. So if people are staying for a long time, they'll often cook their own food, but it's really a great place to meet other people and team up to go travel. Tons of Canadians do this, tons of Australians, they're there as well. Those are probably the big numbers, but there are people from all over the world. And it really is a vibrant place to be because everybody is there, everybody's on a budget, everybody's exploring, and it can be so fun. So I highly recommend hostels. They are just a great place to hang out. Another option is homestays. This is where you perhaps want to stay in a local's home. So this usually happens with a group travel program. If you're planning your own trip, it's like your uncle or your aunt or your uncle's friend, you're probably not going to be staying in somebody's house. But in the event that you're traveling with a group program, often they will have homestays where you get to actually live with a family for the duration of your trip or for a piece of the trip. And that can be a really eye-opening experience. You will learn what breakfast looks like. You'll learn what getting the kids off to school looks like. There are so many things that you can see as part of this experience staying in a homestay. Let's talk about insurance for a quick hot second here. So insurance, there are lots of ways that you can have insurance. Some people on their credit cards have insurance. So a lot of credit cards have insurance for when you're renting a car. Sometimes some people have it for flights, depending on the style of credit card you have. So check what coverage you have directly on your credit card. You can also get travels insurance from World Nomads, from CAA, from any number of organizations. CAA, for example, is a very easy place to get insurance. You just type in how long you're going to be gone, how old you are, and they will give you the cost of the insurance. That will just cover your butt in the event that something goes wrong. Again, read the fine print. Sometimes you're covered for luggage, sometimes you're not. Sometimes you are covered for flight cancellations. Maybe you can cancel for sickness, but not for no reason at all. So it will really depend on what that particular insurance looks like, but it's always a good idea to have that insurance. A few other logistical pieces to keep in mind when you are planning for travel. Number one is to have a communication plan. Who are you talking with at home? How are you updating them? Is it going to be daily? Is it going to be weekly? Is it going to be hourly? What does that look like so that nobody is concerned when there is no travel or when there is no communication back and forth? So for example, hey, I'm going to be heading out to North Thailand. There's no cell reception there, but I will call you next Thursday when I get back into range. Maybe it's emails, maybe it's voice notes, maybe it's video conferencing, whatever that looks like. Make sure you have that so everybody's on the same page and everybody's comfortable with that communication plans. Think about your cell phone. Often in North America, we just assume our phone is going to work anywhere we go. That's not necessarily the case. You may need a different SIM card. They also have eSIM cards now. So make sure you check and just Google and find out what the specifications are for the country that you're traveling to. Often you can buy a SIM card when you land. Some organizations, if you are working with them on your working holiday visa, will have a SIM card for you when you land. So do your research and figure out how you are going to, if you're going to use your phone, how are you going to make sure that it is active and available for you. Now, also checking out when you are planning your trip, you want to check how long are you going to be traveling for? What season is it going to be? So in North America, when it is winter here, it is summer down in the Southern Hemisphere. So don't think that you are escaping winter by going somewhere else. Like, you just need to think about what season is it going to be. Also, different places have different seasons of bad weather. So there are monsoon seasons, periods of drought, periods of high wind, more likely to have tornadoes or hurricanes. So make sure you think about and do your research on what type of weather you might be experiencing when you travel at those different points. Whew, that was a lot of information, and we got through a lot of it really, really quickly. Definitely know that we have lots of resources on our website about how do you plan your travel experience. So if you need any help, you can head to cangap.ca, or you can send an email to info@cangap.ca. We'd be more than happy to chat with you about your travel plans. Otherwise, if you are interested, you could book a call with us. If you go to cangap.ca and you click on Contact Us, there's an option to book a call with a gap year expert, and we can help coach you through some of the travel planning, answer some of your questions around travel. Might be a helpful resource for you. Thanks so much for watching this, and I hope it was helpful for you and that you are able to plan amazing, amazing trips. It has been my pleasure, and I hope to talk to you soon.